Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Eye on the Economy with Colin John Jenkins and Petra Williams. And today or tonight, according to Petra, it's a global thing. So wherever you are in the world, that's the time we're having the conversation.
And it's a pleasure to have you.
It's a pleasure to have you again with us. We are having a conversation, like I mentioned, but this time about traffic. So I would have posted something online where I made mention of how long it took to get to UE 5 Islands from the North Coast, Hodges Bay, Crosby's area in Antigua and Barbuda, and just how frustrating.
What time of day was this?
This was roughly around 3 p.m., where I thought persons haven't left work as yet. And I spent at least 45 minutes just trying to meander and loop around when all Rolling Grove, New Extension, to get back onto Hatton, to get to Five Islands in time. And of course, we would have seen the comments and concerns expressed on social media about the traffic situation in our lovely Twin Island paradise of Antigua and Barbuda, and how drastically things have changed from the last 5-10 years ago. So this post and this conversation sparked an interesting phone call from one Mr. Greg Faustin, engineer, who had expressed equal and, of course, some more concerns than I did, as he was late to pick up his child stuck in traffic.
And so, if you call either of us or you message us about issues that we consider important and pertinent.
Oh, definitely.
And you're willing to have the conversation.
Oh, definitely.
We're ready for you.
We're ready for
and
you.
And as a result, we have
Mr. Greg Faustin, engineer. How are you doing, Greg?
I'm good. I'm okay. What a surprise.
Yes, this is
and Greg, let me tell you why we're so happy that you agreed to do this. Because oftentimes in Antigua, you know how we complain, we fuss, we cuss, and we don't get involved in being solutions driven. Mm-hmm. And so today we're glad you're here with us because we want to, for you with your expert knowledge, to take us through the challenge from your perspective, and then we can have a conversation about some recommendations.
Okay, sure.
So brief introduction about
Tell
yourself.
us about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Greg Faustin. I'm a civil engineer. I hold degrees in civil engineering, and I'm also a PMP, project management professional. But
Yay!
That's not for this discussion. Mm-hmm. But you know, in the course of civil engineering, you do a number of disciplines, right? Structural disciplines, water resources, environmental disciplines, and also we do traffic management, or actually transportation, which involves traffic, and also pavement design, pavements, which is actually what we actually ride on when the traffic. So civil engineers they design the roadways, not only for the actual structure of the roadway, but they also design the capacity and how it flows, right? And so I did like transportation engineering as one of my majors in my final year, and I've had a number of opportunities to liaison with people like Dr. Raymond Furlong, with a traffic expert in Trinidad, and he's done a number of studies in Jamaica, Barbados. He's helped their systems as well, India. So he's an expert. His name is renowned, and he taught the course, right? And over the years, although I have been more into the structural area of civil engineering, I've always, have a nice affinity for roads and actually I did some roads in Trinidad as well, in terms of my work, right? So I called Colin because I saw on Facebook that he had this issue. And I saw a comment from another person on Facebook that, since the traffic lights were turned back on, is a problem, right? So I told Colin, I have called Transport Board, who then put me on to the police department and said that they don't affiliate with this, they're not a part of the signaling issues, and that is the police. When I call the police, they said it's APUA. And I'm like, wait. So, but the issue really was, I think it's probably correct. Yeah. But the issue really was, I was asking years ago for a stand down of some of the lights, of some of the traffic lights, right? As you know, okay, so traffic is modeled this way. It's modeled as a flow, as a fluid. So like any fluid needs it needs an outlet.
Yeah.
Or it's not going to flow. And you know how water flows, right? It flows from a higher point to a lower point. And that's the same model that is done in traffic flow management. All right. And so the traffic flow is really like there's an equation for that. Well, a general equation. We're not going to get too deep into the discussion but a general equation for traffic flow is the density times the volume, and density really is the amount of cars on a particular length of roadway. Right, or space of roadway, and then the V is the velocity. So density times velocity is volume. Velocity.
Yeah, velocity.
Yeah. So that's Q is equal to KV, right? That's what a general equation. So what happens is that when you have a high density, you normally have a reduced V, a reduced velocity. So because cars can't move, so right. So, but the idea is if the V gets to 0, what happens? Then you have Q is 0, right? So that's the problem. So what you really want, you want to have Q always be greater than 0, right? So how does V get to 0? That's the issue. How does V get to 0? V gets to 0 in a number of ways. But you have that congestion where nobody can move. So it's what's called an obstructive situation. Like everyone is obstructing each other. So we can't move. We're stuck with gridlock.
Like when you have gridlock.
So that's V0. Now V gets to 0 by a traffic light. So when the traffic light on red, right, it is the V is now at 0. So we are at a standstill.
Yeah, but isn't the traffic flowing on the other direction?
On the other side it flows,
Right.
right? But that's the issue. So the issue with traffic signaling, which is a management system, is that it allows for flow in different areas at an intersection. So we're at a particular intersection, so it allows for this flow, allows for that, and allows for this. So while you're actually sitting in traffic, there should be flow in another area.
Right.
So we can't be sitting in traffic and there's no flow anywhere, right? So that's one of the issues. And what I find is that I guess over time, I'm not sure exactly how long our lights have been on. Have been installed, the traffic lights, and they may have been installed for different conditions that we actually reside under right now in terms of density, right? They may not have been enough that number of vehicles on the road, right? Not they're made. There was
That one by Golden Grove School has to be what you're talking about. Updated programming.
Patience. Let me see.
So I'm assuming that there were studies done, and none of our traffic lights are actually censored, right? So or follow a loop, from what I know. Censored meaning that there's some traffic lights that have a sensor loop on the roadway, where when there's nothing past the sensor loop, it tells you that it's time for this road to move, right? I think most of our lights are basically on a pre-programmed time delay. This one gets that one gets that. This one might get 30 seconds, some might get a minute, but it's a fixed time delay. What I think needs to happen, just to in addressing this, is a new study, a more relevant traffic study, right? A more relevant traffic study would actually give you current data as to density and even velocity on some of our roadways.
May I, please? I'm having a slight difficulty. You're suggesting to me that it is possible, that we are not conducting traffic studies to know how best to manage our traffic flows?
Well, I am not privy to the.
But based on what you're seeing, it doesn't appear that way.
Yeah, because over 20 years, the lights have not changed in duration. They have been the same, right? The lights are staying on the same. We have no sensor intersections anywhere in Antigua. Yet still, K, which is density, is increasing on us at a rapid rate. Everybody now has a car.
Let me
Every what it goes. Every person has 1.5 cars.
Oh.
Now go ahead.
So let me speak about this for a second, Greg. I'm aware that when they're doing the road rehabilitation,
That people count cars.
that we have, generally speaking, on the exterior of St. John's, because like Factory Road, Old Palm Road, going to piers, etc. That part of that should be some
That
amount
people
of
count cars.
should be some amount of traffic study, whether there's the different methods of
We see
measuring.
that because the
I
reason
know,
we
I
ask
know.
them is because I have seen people standing on the side of the road counting cars. 1 or 2 of my children have been engaged
So,
to
so
count cars.
I think what I'm trying to draw in terms of a parallel is for intersections like Sir George Water Highway and Old Palm Road, there's a stoplight there versus a stoplight now at the intersection by APUA and Independence Drive. What I'm trying to understand is if your opinion is one that's more urban centered, or it's just
Okay, so basically, classically, right, traffic, as I say, is a flow. So the flow is over the entire city and outside of the city.
Yeah.
Like now they're talking about like smart traffic management systems where you can monitor something way out of the city and know, well, this is a lot of traffic coming in here. So you actually adjust into the city, the inlet. So it's not a case where we can actually do it in a manner that just, like
it has to be a holistic thing.
yeah. But in the meantime, while we're not doing it that way, right, we should always try to aim for Q being more than 0.
So let me ask a question about Q being more than 0.
Yeah.
Because I know many people are in preference of the flashing lights for the traffic to be continuous, Q being more than 0. But who then, especially at the major intersections, how then, in the absence of the traffic lights, do we manage the flow? And I've also seen the comments that suggest that the flashing lights make the traffic flow better. And then I get up one morning because I try to avoid the early morning traffic. And then idiot me, seeing everybody happy about the flashing lights working, get up one morning and decide to get caught in the traffic and learn, go home and stay home and let the traffic flow. Has it been your experience that the flashing light traffic is better?
Okay, so let's examine density, right?
Right.
So in the case where, so there's a threshold density in all of this, right? Remember, it's more, when you try to model this thing, you have to, like, you're coming from either end. So let's consider a bell curve. So there's an optimum velocity, first of all, that allows for traffic flow, all right? So if the velocity gets too low, you start to back up
That's
traffic.
true. That's true.
And at the same time, so now that's on one end, and then on the other end, if the density is low, then the velocity can increase, right?
Yes.
It has been my experience to this day that our densities, it peak at certain times, right? It peak like at 3 to 5 in the morning, right? You get that kind of congestion, traffic. But what happens is, from what I gather, from what I've seen and driven in, we don't have a congestion problem that warrants that level of
0.
traffic control.
It doesn't warrant going to 0.
No.
Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, when we say that, because I realize we are using the technical terms, velocity and so on. So just to interchange, when we say velocity, we're talking about the speed at which the car moves.
Yes.
And when we say the density, we're talking about the number of cars on the road.
Yes.
All right. So go ahead.
Right. So if there is a particular speed, all right, at which cars can actually flow through intersections without coming to a stop. And okay, so let me say it again. What the lights does, the lights brings the cars to a stop, right? That's what the lights do. They bring cars to a stop and they increase the traffic way down the road. For instance, if you're at American Road intersection with American Road with Factory Road, and you're on Factory Road and you stop on American Road, and so you stop right there. that traffic is backing up, or sometimes all the way back to the roundabout, by Ace, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. So, and the thing is about the thing about traffic is that you wouldn't realize that it does that, because remember, we're talking about densities. So the more traffic we have on the road, a 30-second stop is significant down the road.
That's true.
All right, as opposed to a 10-second stop. Let me explain.
No, I understand. We understand.
So what I'm is my now, without having done any sort of a hard empirical study at it, from just driving the road and driving in other countries, in fact every other country in the Caribbean, what I know, what I can say is that the density, we're not at that threshold where we have to implement hard and fast traffic signaling to the point where we end up in a gridlock, right? There are some critical, some funny intersections that may warrant some management,
Yeah.
but altogether, not all the areas that we have as managed areas or managed intersections, there is a need for a review of these areas. Right?
Question.
There is need for review.
Question.
Yes.
I remember, I think in the last, when we did the Sir George Walter, when I come across.
Going to for me
By Island.
gourmet basket.
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay. I remember some time back, a few years back, was it COVID or maybe before? There was a talk of making a ring road, like one road during the busy times, either Old Palm Road or
Yes,
Factory
yes.
Road
They were
would
talking
be
about
one in and one out and so on.
Yeah.
Do you think that those are some of the options that should be put before us now, especially with the morning traffic and the coming in and coming out? Or you don't think we're there
I
yet?
don't think we're there. Okay, so let me explain what I think which we should do based on my experience driving in that area
And your professional
and yes,
opinion.
right. I think we need to allow for the traffic on. We need to identify major roads, major arteries, or major either leading into or out, and treat these roads as quote unquote highways. I know we have no highways in Antigua, but treat them as roads that we are going to stop the least on these roads. We're not going to be stopping. We're going to go straight into town. No, after you get to town, that's another issue, right? Right. So we're now coming to town, right? So, for instance, Factory Road, treat that as a well. In fact, that new roundabout does that. So the new roundabout at 8
The roundabout is supposed to do that
is supposed to do that.
until the people are in
It's
the wrong
supposed
way.
to do that.
I was about
Go ahead.
Right? So a roundabout is a beautiful design. Right? What it allows for is a continuous queue.
Agreed.
Right or wrong, right? So if we allow that road to be unimpeded, just when you reach up at Hani Motors, you keep going as well, right? You keep going, and we end up all the way down by Obstinate.
Yeah.
Hold on. Okay, so I have a question.
Yeah.
So if we're coming down, we've passed the roundabout, we're coming down to Hani Motors, and so that main road traffic coming down, that's the highway traffic.
Yeah.
What happens to the traffic going the other
Right.
way?
So beautiful. So what I'm saying, so the way it's managed right now, we are stopping this one, we're stopping that one.
Right.
Now, in certain levels of congestion or densities, you have to allow for a free flow. Now, this is where the driver,
Courtesy?
not only courtesy but common sense. Yes. So this is where happens even when you're walking on the road. If you're walking on your market street, you don't need a traffic light to tell you, well, let this person pass in front of you. You don't need that. No. I'm not asking for chaos, right? You know what I'm saying? But this is done in Mexico. It's done in Istanbul. You have so much traffic. You have like 8 lanes coming into one place. You cannot stop those 8 lanes because you have problems. So, for instance, I will give you an example. I remember once in Trinidad, they actually sent everybody home. That was back years ago. They sent everybody home because of I think it was a hurricane or earthquake, something. And so everybody had to leave town at the same time. All right? That was a disaster.
I can imagine.
Right, that was a disaster because the lights will prevent right. Not only lights, but does the congestion. Right. So what they had to do, they stand down all the lights. That's the first thing you do, and then you lose all the priority routes. All the priority routes were now accessible to all the public. So the bus route was now accessible to the wider public, and so on. It's the same thing here. We are approaching a threshold right now in Antigua, and we need to do some modern traffic studies in the city. But before we do that, if we keep implementing these lights we have right now that were actually based on perhaps the 80s model or the 80s count or the 80s density, we're actually going to frustrate ourselves as the years go by. So what I'm saying is, let us stand down the lights for now. Give us because I think most people would have seen that when you stand the lights down, there's a reprieve. You are able to flow. The lines are not that long because they keep flowing.
Then what is the reason why because the lights have been they've stand the lights down several times.
Yeah.
And then eventually you see the lights come back on.
Well, I don't know.
And I think, and the reason I'm saying that, I'm hearing you, because I think one of the challenges has been that when the lights go down, common sense does not kick in,
and the police
and
force will have to help.
the accident rates go up.
Yeah, it has happened.
That's I mean, and I appreciate
At the intersection?
at the intersection.
There was an instance where was it? I think it was the intersection by Factory and American Road where the light was not working once, and the police had to come and assist because, as you mentioned, I can't say nobody, but there was a lack of courtesy. So even though it was flowing, people weren't giving way to other persons to move.
There've been accidents at the one that you guys wish there would be no lights. Golden Grove.
No. The light is not the problem.
I'm saying when that is flashing,
boy.
that is chaos.
When it's flashing, it's chaos?
When that is over there, when it is flashing, it is chaos.
Okay, so
The one by Golden Grove School I'm talking, because nobody wants to give. Everybody comes into that. Remember, there's no roundabout there.
Yeah.
So what are the times that we're talking about?
Well, that becomes the question.
So we're talking about peak times.
Okay.
Right? Talking about peak times. But in general, so let's say you're going home, right? It's 7:00 in the evening, right? It's relaxed.
Yes, really.
Do you want to come to a stop at Golden Grove for 2 minutes and nothing is passing in front of you? Nothing is going in front of you. There's no need for it. In fact, by after 9 in the morning, there's really no need for that because the velocity is
On which road?
on the same Golden Grove intersection.
Okay, you're saying after peak hours, it should be okay.
After peak hours, what happens after peak hours? You have a less density. You have a more manageable loss.
I'm going to challenge that now because
Tell me.
after peak hours, on which days? Because when we have tourism traffic, when we have those cruise ships in, our peak hours extend. There is no break. I'm on the road. So you're on the road for the primary peak hours.
Right.
What time you get into town for? You go into town?
No, out of town.
So you're going out of town.
Yeah.
So what would you consider to be the peak hours?
Peak hours is between 7 and 9.
Okay. So between 9 and 10:30, the buses are now, so we have settled down. The local people, we have settled, most of us have settled into where we are.
Yeah.
And then the cruise passengers are now moving. And so the rest of us who are now moving in that secondary traffic, we're still in peak hours.
But that's not on certain days. Petra?
Yeah, but the reason why I raised it, the reason why I'm raising it is because you mentioned, and I'm taking everything you're saying into account because you're making good sense, but what happens is, so we want to relax the lights in an environment, and this is my contention, where common sense is not a priority usage. And especially when they're taxi drivers, and y'all gonna vex with me, especially when they're pushing to move their
quickly.
traffic,
Mm-hmm.
everybody wants to be moving at the same time. And so I am wondering if it is that we're looking for unfettered standing on of the lights, or no, we're asking the police, the traffic department in particular, to increase their visibility at intersections and along the roadways. Because unlike places you mentioned, Mexico, India, even some of our Caribbean neighbors who have bus lanes and bus routes, and they have lanes that they can have expedited traffic and so on. We have 2 lanes, one in, one out, except for some few roads where we might have that third lane.
Just 3.
Right. We really don't have room to maneuver on the roads.
So here's something that I would add before you respond to that, Greg. And I'm taking it a bit on utopia. One, I think we seriously need to consider carpooling. Right? I know I'm opening a can of worms here.
I suspect he was. You're going to come to that tomorrow.
I think we need to consider in this discussion the whole idea of carpooling. There are case studies out there where it shows that. I also think that when we're doing development plans, Petra, in terms of looking at new communities, that we make sure within that community, the 10 basic commodities and needs are in that community that doesn't require them to extend themselves too far outside. I also think in terms of St. John's, we need to look at how we can replan St. John's so not all of the roads are accessible to... I know, Roland, to vehicles. And then last but not least, and the most controversial of them all, is how can we incentivize families to reduce the number of vehicles per family? As I said, not stop, not legislate, incentivize. So if you have a family, let's say of 4, and you have 2 vehicles rather than 3, is there an incentive? I know I'm speaking with a mouthful, but what do you think about those kind of solutions to some of the problems you're talking about as we wind down the conversation?
No, those are social issues, most behavioral and social issues. The hard science is this, right? We need to have queue going, right? We need to have a law for traffic flow. That is the basis of any traffic management system. The signals do that, right? They allow for traffic flow. In the other direction and so on at intersections. The issue that we're having now is that we have a case where our signals right now, and that's my contention, are not designed for the actual densities that we have in Antigua.
So we haven't come into the 21st century. That's what we are, right?
Yeah. So we have to address that, right? We also have to address. We also have to do that by at least let us look at censored lights, censored signals in Antigua, right? Now that would address some of the difficult intersections. Also on the issue of the behavioral part now. So a number of things affect the flow, right? And I was making a note of this when I just and I think one of the things that affect flow that we don't really pay attention to is bad roads, right?
When we do the repairs to the road, you meant, or just bad?
Just the condition on the road. So, for instance, if the roads are difficult, drivers have to slow down. Yes. When you have to slow down, you affect queue, right? And you have those things.
Like the queue affects your velocity too.
Yeah, right.
We're cooking with gas now.
Right. So that's one. Then you have the issue of parking, right? Parking. No, I know about you, but I really hate to go through Jenkins and so on and Seaview Farm and those roads. Those are narrow roads, but it's like parking is like there's nothing there. Yeah. So if you find that you're in a line going to Jolly Harbor and you want to know if there's an accident or whatever, somebody just park on the road, right? So that is also an issue,
annoying,
all right? And that's kind of behavioral stuff. Yeah. And one of what might be a pet peeve of mine, for those who know me, but one of the issues is that drivers stop too frequently on the roads, on the major roads in Antigua. I know it's almost like driving in Canada, where you come. When you do that, when you say, oh, come,
But we have to hail our friends.
Yeah.
We have to get the
You have to let them
groceries out the
pass. You
vehicle.
have to buy the coconut water.
You understand?
Buy the
I've
corn.
seen drivers, they are alone on the road, right? They are alone on Friday Road. They are alone. There's nobody behind them at all. And they would just stop on the road and tell the guy to come. Now, if they just drive for the next half a second, the guy would enter the
There's no
road.
traffic in
There's nobody behind them. But it's something in the psyche to just stop when you see a guy, somebody is indicating that they want to.
So how do you address that, Greg?
No, it's a behavioral issue. So that is not.
But then you're going to be considered that you're not courteous. We're not a
No,
kind.
no. It's not about courtesy. We. It's just the rules of the road. The rules of the road are clear. It doesn't. The rules of the road are so clear. Honestly, they don't even need a police because there's a way to turn right, a way to turn left. It's just like automatic. The roundabout is a wonderful.
So hold on. So again, is it PSAs we need that run constantly to talk about where you stop to pick up? Because you have to do something. We're getting more cars as we go along. So what do?
We have to, like I said, we need an up-to-date management study based on the actual count in Antigua and Barbuda. I'm not sure if we even know how many vehicles.
So here's a question.
Yes.
Are there any countries that you can think of in your experiences and sharing with your professional colleagues and so on, who have a similar population size, or if not the exact same, geographical space, density challenges, similar challenges to us, who would have, say, in the last 5 to 7 years, implemented upgraded traffic management plans?
Well, okay, so I'm not sure if Trinidad is similar, but I would just give an example, right? The highways in Trinidad were once 2-lane highways, so they extended them and made them wider. So that allowed for easier flow because you have, right. Then also they had a number of traffic lights going down to spot speed, a number. They reduced all. In fact, they removed all. Right. So what I'm saying is similar. If we treat the roads
like
leading into like highways,
yes.
and prioritize these roads as roads that should remain free flowing.
I know we're out of time, right? But I have to ask.
Then that will help. That will help with the feeling of being stuck on the road. I don't know if you ever felt like if you were ever stuck. Well, perhaps you have, but the feeling of being stuck behind the wheel.
One time, my belly started to be funny, right? And there was no bushes nowhere.
Yeah.
All right, so I got cold sweat. But go ahead, Petra, ask a question. Ask your question.
Every time we talk about traffic management, I reflect on St. Croix. St. Croix, because St. Croix is smaller than us.
Yes.
And they have going there from a child.
Yeah.
So they have highways.
Yeah.
I just vex. Yes, I know it's a U.S. country, and even St. Martin to a lesser extent, because as you began to speak about the free-flowing traffic, those two countries actually came to mind, where they have the highway look and feel in terms of the traffic management. Is it, looking at your engineering experience now and how Antigua is laid out, and I don't know if you're familiar with any of the experience with Friesen Road, because I think part of the challenge with Friesen Road was they just couldn't get access to the lands on the side, so that they could have done
There was a limit.
more. Right.
Yeah.
Do you think where we are heading with our less than quality public transportation system, especially in some parts of the island, some parts are much better than the others, with the continuous expansion in the numbers of vehicles on the road, do you think there will come a time when we will have to revisit our road network, perhaps go overhead?
Yes, it's coming. That time is coming. It's coming fast and furious.
Okay.
So the time is coming when the signals won't help. All right?
Wow.
And what we have to do is widen the roads or have diversions, create new roads, get some of the traffic off Friesen Road. So, for instance, there are certain places that drivers prefer to travel because of the bad roads. So, in other words, you may have a shortcut to a particular place. Let's say you're coming down from the north and you want to get across to, you want to get into Casada Gardens.
You want to give with a shortcut?
Yeah, you go through Utility Drive.
Nobody want to go to this. Right. So we're going to have to address that will
We have
come
to make a lot of
to
size
address the rideability and the quality and rideability of the size of the secondary roads.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
That has to happen. So that's the thing about like I said, the traffic system. It's a holistic thing. So for instance, if we ease up Frizel Road, what happens when you ease up Frizel?
Ease up where? Ease it up how?
You can ease up Frizel Road in a number of ways.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
Having
I think
deviations.
it's correct.
so for instance, right now, Fort Road. If you come into town in the morning, Fort Road is normal. Fort Road is significantly less. All right.
No, because road bad. But when the road fixed, hopefully it'll go back down there.
Well, they're fixing the road.
Yes.
But what happened for a number of, for almost 2 years actually, that culvert was being done. And in people's mind, that is not a diversion of Friday Road into town. It's in their minds just Friday Road. So what I'm saying, if there's a number of other ways to get into town, that will allow for, you can split that allows you to split the density.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
So you're saying that we need to actively consider now revisiting our secondary roads? Because I'll give you a quick example, Colin. Anytime I'm going on the north side, remember I come from Point.
Right.
So I going west,
Right.
way west, Yorks,
So you think
Swing. And
You go down Dickinson Bay
I
side?
have no, not Dickinson Bay. I go Knott Street, go across Bay Street,
Yeah.
go through Yorks, come out by First Choice. I'm telling you, I
Reach
get
in no time.
I get there faster than
Yeah.
coming across
Yeah,
Frizel
yes,
Road
yes.
or Fort Road.
You're right. You're right.
But like you said, the quality of the roads,
and most-
because some of those roads
Can't
need
take
some
that
work.
every day.
Most people
Yeah.
don't want to drive those because of the rideability. It's too hard. It's so difficult. But that's coming. That's coming. So the engineers who are the planners and the planners and those who allocate monies for transportation, they need to look at that. Look at our secondary roads, like for instance Buckley's. How do you get to Buckley's? There should be there should be many other ways to get to Buckley's, and we know that because developers, there are number you can get through all states, but the roads they're not good.
So, if as we look to wrap, and we want to thank you very much for being brave enough to have this conversation with us today and the economy.
I can tell he's passionate about it.
Clearly, what would be the 2 takeaways if you were given the opportunity today to advise our transportation department on the best way to improve our traffic flow systems?
The first way is to obtain relevant data so that we can plan and we can formulate a response to this signal system that actually works. All right, and a response to signal system would mean finally having censored intersections, censored signals, so that we don't end up where you have the lines are extremely long and nothing on the other side, and we're still waiting, and those things add up down in the back, right? And secondly, the other thing that I would say is we need to also assess: do we need all these lights, right? Do we need all the signals? Like, there are some areas that you need signals, but there are other areas that the signals themselves are actually creating and adding to the traffic. All right. I would say, for instance, we don't need so many signals in town for sure. All right, because and I'll tell you why. I mean, we don't, because there's a little caveat, a little rule there. If the velocity it will always be, it cannot increase in a particular space of road. In other words, because of the congestion, it will never increase. All right, it will always be in a particular, because not unless it's midnight. All right, you don't need to have a light to manage that velocity.
Yeah.
All right, what you need is to allow for the flow and just allow for, okay, I'm going, you go, you go, you go. That you can see that will actually be the solution to me at, for instance, at Dr. Ramsey building there. Ramco Pharmacy, and also on Independence Avenue. Because you put those lights on, you're gonna back that thing up all the way to Robinson. It's gonna be stiff. So those can relax. There are other lights like the ones by at Mansour area, Townhouse, right? Those can stay on, but they have to be signaled.
Yes,
They have to be signaled.
Yeah.
And you want the sensor.
Yeah, it has to be. I want to say signal, so censored on the signal, right? So that's my recommendation.
And I'm going to be brave to add one.
While,
I'm going to be brave to add one thing that you mentioned before.
sure,
Developing the secondary.
and developing the secondary route, but that is another thing altogether.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a very interesting conversation. And I want to tell our guest, I'm putting him on notice,
Coming back, right?
that there will likely be some follow-up questions. And we think that we would want to have you back as we continue to explore. Because what we've discovered in Antigua, we like 9-day talking, and then it goes away. So we're not going to leave this as a 9-day talking. We're going to allow the 9 days to pass and see what evolves, and then we'll bring it back. So we want
I've certainly
to
learned
thank
something.
you for coming. You've enlightened me on a lot. I'm going to start using more backside words. For purpose, yes. But definitely. And I like the concept that it's time for us to modernize our lighting system.